and welcome everyone to Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. My name is Nina Joshi, and today we will be bringing on two very special guests, Gina Williams and Catherine Skobe from Pfizer. As you know, here at Women's Health Tech Wednesdays, we love questions. So if you have any, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll make sure to get to it during our discussion. So with that, we'd like to formally bring on our guests, Gina and Catherine. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us. We're excited.
Thank you indeed. Yes, very happy to be here.
All right, awesome. Well, let's just jump into it then. I would love if you could both share with our community a little bit about who you are and how you ended up at Pfizer. And maybe, Catherine, we can start with you.
Sure. Yes. Hi, everyone. So Catherine Skobe, my current role is as Publications Innovative Solutions Lead at Pfizer. I co-lead the Publications Management team here. I'd say the first half of my career I spent in clinical research, and then the last half of my career I transitioned into scientific communications and publications. And I was lucky enough to join Pfizer when they created this team about 15 years ago. So I got here on the ground floor, and I've been here with the publications management team ever since.
Wow, that's incredible. Gina, what about you?
Gina Williams, and I am a director of in the digital department at Pfizer, and my title it's got a lot of words, but it's basically Core Creation Center Lead, and I'm responsible for the publications and transparency platforms. I've been at Pfizer for about 15 years, and prior to that, I was a consultant in pharma for probably 5 years. And prior to that, I was actually an entrepreneur for 8 years. But obviously that didn't work out. But we gave it our best shot. I came into technology sort of from a business strategy perspective, got really keenly interested in it. And then when I did my MBA, I did an emphasis in information systems. So I have a generalist technology viewpoint, and I really like to think about it as a strategic focus point and ways to really move the business using technology.
That's incredible. Two powerhouses right here. That's amazing. And, with the help of these two teams, so Catherine, your publications team, Gina, your digital team, you designed and built your own scientific publication management solution, Aurora. I would love if you could share with us, what sparked you to create this platform?
Yeah, so I'll start, Gina.
Please.
So we had been using a system for a really long time, and it was about to retire, and there was an opportunity for us to figure out what we wanted to do next and how we could grow our business. The scientific publications community and the work that we're doing has really expanded and exploded over the past couple of years, particularly with the pandemic, like many things have. And we really wanted to find a solution that was that would fit our needs for growth and agility. And so Gina, as our digital partner, really helped lead that effort in helping us figure out what was the best way to do that. And so with a strong digital partner and team behind us, we decided, why don't we go out on our own and build something that we think will help us meet those needs? And so, Gina, do you want to talk a little bit about what led up to how we got to where we are?
Sure. I remember sitting in your office, Catherine. It was several years ago, and I was new to Catherine, new supporting her group, and I asked her where she wanted to take her. We call it the technology roadmap for your business process, the tool that is driving your business process. What is it doing for you well, and what is it not doing for you well? Where do you want to take it? And she had a vision she articulated of an ecosystem where we really have a full process end to end for the publication lifecycle. So we were able to get the publications to submission, and we had a really robust process built into a solution we were using that would help us achieve that. But to get beyond that, more into building that feedback loop. So now you've just published all this content. How do you get the learnings from what you've just done back into the system so you can drive the way you do it the next time? So you can make your system and your business process smarter. And the way she described it, I said, I don't know if we're going to be able to achieve that in a short time frame on our current platform. We would really need to probably get a customization kind of scenario with partnering with another vendor to give us what we need. But it's not, it's a pricey and it's a major undertaking, especially for an enterprise our size, where we have thousands and thousands of folks that are using the system. And we ended up jumping off the high dive, and I'll give it back to Catherine.
Yeah, it has been a long journey, and I know we're going to get into that in a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. That is incredible, though. I think, just on seeing, I'm sure, just the pure volume of the work that's happening, and really kind of asking, how can we, optimize this and make it as meaningful as possible? And, on that note, when it kind of came to designing, a new and improved publication system, what were some of the objectives that you were looking for? So I know you mentioned, having this type of feedback loop, which I think is genius. So that you're constantly learning. Were there any other objectives or things that you really wanted to be able to accomplish using a tool like this?
I will say we had access to some front end data sources, and we wanted to expand that because we have the clinical trial data that we were bringing into the solution, but really we wanted to make it more operationally efficient for our statisticians who are involved in the publication development process. So we reached out, and Gina, of course, knows all of the different solutions and systems across Pfizer. So that was really helpful to me, who only knew what was in my space. And so she helped identify that. We have financial budgeting and management within our solution. And so she knew who to go to for Reba, and then all of the people and context, the contact people that we need in the solution. So she knew about Reltio and bringing that information in, and then the publications piece, I was able to help with that. And then with the back end, where we're talking about the feedback, is what were the solutions that are out there in publications that are capturing feedback in real time online and engagement, and so we were able to integrate those solutions in. So there's a lot of technology built, which is why we needed that agility piece to be able to have those integrations that we needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know, Catherine, if you want to speak about building the digital science component into the tool to help with some of the selection of journals and targeting, selecting your journals and so forth.
Yeah. Sorry, Nita.
No, so that sounds interesting. Yeah, I would love to learn.
Yeah, because I think that's really cool. If you want to talk to that.
To us who are in publications, right? Finding the right target to meet the audience that you're trying to give your, right, we spend all of this time and money doing clinical trials when the output is really these scientific publications that help shape the way physicians make their decisions. And one of the things we're always asked is, did you get your message across, right? Did they get that information? And so we really took this in a multi-pronged approach. One, we work with a vendor called Digital Science, who has alternative metrics and dimensions, and they really provide us with real-time feedback and online engagement with our publications through many different sources, including social media, but also scholarly information, which we have been working with separately, independently of our own old solution. And so we were able to integrate that data into Aurora. As well as one of the other things I could touch on is open access, and that's really about the accessibility to information, that we pay to have it open and not behind a paywall, so you have to subscribe to that journal. And so there's a group called Unpaywall. It's a nonprofit. We were able to build in that API into our solution so that we can monitor our ability to have our publications made available through open access. So that was novel to the solution that we hadn't seen in other systems, and it allows us to really monitor, how we are impacting our audiences, both HCPs, practitioners, nurse practitioners, as well as patients.
Absolutely. Yeah, the engagement part, I mean, that's also a part of the roadmap, even though, that kind of happens after a publication or after something is considered closed.
Right.
So I like that you kind of extended to make sure that that was also being accounted for. That's incredible. You kind of had mentioned a little bit earlier about, really all of the different people that are kind of touching the software. You had mentioned, statisticians, the different types of researchers that are involved. I'm sure there's so many other folks that kind of go into, developing a publication like this. How are you kind of able to, make sure that their needs as users were kind of incorporated as a stakeholder perspective, kind of during this journey of creating Aurora?
Well, at an organization like Pfizer, as you can imagine, we have tens of thousands of stakeholders who are involved in the development of publications, like you mentioned, the clinicians, external investigators, our med affairs department, statisticians, health economics, outcomes research, publications people. And so Gina was, in her brilliance, said, we need to hold focus groups and get their feedback. So really at the very beginning, before we even decided what the solution was going to be, she hosted many focus groups with all of these different groups to get, okay, what are the pain points in those solutions? In our current solution, where do we need to go? I'll let Gina talk about that because she's really good at describing how she engaged everyone.
Well, Catherine is diminishing her contribution to that effort and leading it, but I'll take that. So what we did is we actually organized it by the stakeholder audience to a certain degree, so we could, have common kind of themes in the workshops. But the idea is, and we sort of there's a template that we follow at Pfizer in the digital space. When you're going to find out what you want to do with, whether you need to even go to a new state, maybe, when I say state, I don't mean another geographic state, but a state of your solution. So you're in your current state. And if you work with any kind of enterprise software where you're at your jobs are where you work at now, there's going to be things you hate about it, but there's also going to be things you may not realize you actually like about it, right? And so when we go to these workshops, we go in and we don't want to sound all negative and say, hey, what do you not like? We really want to say, what is really working for you well? Is all of your process met? Is there any pieces you're doing outside of the system? Because if they're being done outside of the system, there's an opportunity to integrate that and create some efficiencies for the business process. There's also, you want to find out, what do they really like? Because you don't want to lose that, right? So you want to make sure that gets emphasized as a requirement you want to persist. And then you can ask them, okay, put on your blue sky hat. What would you wish this solution could do? You've thought about it, but you didn't think it was feasible, and you never asked, but really think about that. And you can get some really neat ideas. And with respect to the integration of the clinical data that needs to be shared with the authors, we actually found a way to integrate our system where that data is, the summary data is stored and all the information related to it, where they can publish it from that system to our system. They don't have to download it and then email it and then upload it. It seems like a small thing, but if you have to do that repeatedly and you're a statistician who's really busy, it would be nice if some of these rote tasks could be automated. And there's also other benefits to doing that, because you're going to make sure you have the right version in the hands at the right time. So they don't have to go back and flip through emails or wherever they're doing. So these are the kind of because of those workshops, we actually have tangible features in our new product that came directly out of those workshops. And the other benefit of that is the folks that suggested them and participated in them, it gives them a sense of ownership of the product as well. And it helps you get through the change management period when people have to learn something new and they grumble. So there's another benefit to that. Yeah. Okay.
That is amazing. I mean, a couple of things that you mentioned that I would love to call out. I think when you were talking about, not only talking about the pain points, but what are the things that you actually liked about the tool, I think is something that I think can be a little bit missed when having these types of conversations. It's always about what is going wrong, not about these are the things that I actually like. And I love that you also, really wanted to have people take ownership and kind of create almost, this sense of being a champion for the tool in and of itself, feeling like they were a part of it. So I think, that sounds like it was really, really valuable in not only setting, the roadmap of what this tool looks like, but also making sure that, when that actually comes to fruition, that you have hype men, so to speak, to kind of to be a supporter of it.
That you even use the words that they suggest you use in for project management as a champion for your product. And you can't just give people the name champion and expect them to be a champion. You really need to get them engaged and get them a sense of ownership of the product, and then they will go out and evangelize accordingly. This is going to be great. This part right now might be tough, but the change, once you get on the other side, you're going to really be happy. So that's it's a really good point you made, Nina. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then, this was mentioned a little bit about kind of some of the different data components. And I would, of course, imagine in a large organization working with different data sources, different files, et cetera. What were some of the tools that you implemented to ensure, clean, streamlined data for, all of the different projects and works?
So the vendor that we selected builds on a product called Salesforce that you may have heard of before. And one of the reasons we picked Salesforce as the platform is they also own a product called Mule, which is a middle tier service, and it helps bring data back and forth. It's really a ETL process to bringing your data back and forth from in the organization, or if you want to send it to downstream systems, you have this. It basically can implement the logic, any kind of rules you need on the data for how you want to consume it into your system. And we have a team that's just focused on that for our solution. So we have, I think, 8 integration points right now. And the way we do the validation that you asked about is we actually have QC reports that that identify if any, for example, let's say you wanted a contract from a different system that we have to flow into our system, so the folks know that the contract is approved, you can start the work. And that comes in through a daily feed from that source system that's a different product altogether. And what if we're not getting one of the contracts? Where is it? Why is it not flowing in? So before we can even know it's not flowing in, we need a QC report or a quality check report to tell us these 8 contracts did not flow in, and it's because they're missing X, Y, and Z information. So we don't have anything to link them to in our system, for example. That's one example. We do that for we have different rules for the different sources depending on the criticality of certain fields or the criticality of getting the data in a timely fashion, for example. And these reports go out to the folks that are stakeholders for that particular perspective on the application, so they can go, oh, well, wonder what happened, and they'll go look at it in the source system and see if they can clean up the data.
Absolutely. Wow, that sounds very complex, but I think I like that you really wanted to emphasize this idea of just seamless. I think especially in a digital world with different fragmented systems, each having a very particular role, just combining them all together in and of itself, I think is an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah, it's an army of work. A lot of people have to do work. And really that's when you get your product rolled out, you'll find that you miss things. I mean, you're going to miss things. That's part of you're doing your best to get the product out the gate in a way that you can do your job, but then you've got to iterate on it to get it right.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, a great segue, because I would love to learn, this seems like a huge endeavor, really, really impactful. When you initially launched this product, what were some either challenges or lessons learned? What were some of the areas that you kind of noticed to build upon when launching? I think just, this goes for really any new product, and maybe some of the initial challenges or pain points that you noticed.
And still continuing. We're still working.
It's iterative.
So I think we started with this minimum viable product when we launched, and I would say, Gina's actually been a great champion and supporter of trying to resolve a lot of our issues. But I would say the things that affected us as a business was we used this agile methodology for building the solution, because we built it in 9 months.
Yep.
And we have, and I don't think we've touched on this yet, so we have over, just to throw out some numbers, we have over 8,000 users. I mean, you can imagine, it's Pfizer, right? We have over 8,000 users. We produce thousands of publications a year, manuscripts, abstracts, posters, so on, that kind of thing. So it's a lot. And I think with the agile methodology in which we built it, as it's being built, and we're looking at it, especially as a business person, looking at, whether or not a certain functionality is going to be there early on, it was like, this isn't working, right? And just knowing you had to trust that the solution architects knew what they were doing and that understood, and we were conveying it correctly, which is what Gina's saying. Sometimes we were speaking one language and they're speaking another, and there's that little bit of miss. And I would say the other thing that I found personally was there were, we have this master plan that we're still building on, and we couldn't get everything because we just couldn't afford to get everything we really wanted or didn't have the time. As some of the upstream data sources were undergoing their own, as we automate, they were undergoing their own upgrades, and so we weren't able to get those into our solution at the time of launch because we had to wait for that. So we've got, I would say, a handful of other integrations we want that we're having to wait for until they're completed. Right. But I think that from a business perspective, those were the challenges that I think, and then change management, right? I mean, we've invested a lot of time on that. I don't know, Gina, what do you think from the support side?
Yeah. I think the downside to having 8,000 super smart people using your brand new system is they find things wrong, and they find things wrong. And then they ask lots of questions, and then, and they are all valid points they're bringing up. So I think it's, that the good side is we're getting the feedback, and we were getting it fast and pretty furious in the first 3 months. We're still, I would say, in a hypercare phase, trying to iron out some of the nuanced requirements, that because people didn't use all the features right away. They used the base, the fundamentals, and now they're starting to use the more, they're really getting into the deeper pieces of the functionality, and they're finding things there that need to get refined as well. One of the nice things, and Catherine brought this up, is using an agile approach. Is we have done, since launch, we've probably done 4 small releases, and probably every 3 to 4 weeks we do a release, and it's either to apply some hot fixes, or it can also be some minor enhancements because we may have missed something. We had the requirement 95% right, but we missed this one piece that was really important, and it needs to get in because it's actually kind of a showstopper. So those kind of things were, the vendor we selected is really reactive in a positive way. They're fast, but we also have to throttle that a little bit because we don't want to break anything when we're trying to fix it, right? So it's a fine balance where you have to manage in those scenarios.
Absolutely, especially with a larger scale tool.
Exactly.
Want to turn it over. We have some questions from the audience. I want to spend some time kind of going through a couple of these. So the first question is around the ability for this tool to kind of have that feedback loop of also inputting data. And so the question is, creating a feedback loop can be riddled with compliance obstacles. What was the biggest challenge, and what did you do to overcome it?
Well, so that's really what Gina was saying just now, is we're just starting to embark on that. I mean, really, it's we launched in March. We've been dealing with not weekly, but at the beginning, weekly releases. And so the feedback piece is just starting to come out. And so we have publications. We have an attorney who helps us, not that we really have to use her, but really that feedback is going back to, I can't think of any compliance issues that we've had to deal with, but really the feedback goes back to the scientific publication committees for them to take in that information, see, what they can extract from it, and does that impact any publication planning they have? Like, are there questions around maybe some questions we didn't answer with our data that we should be thinking about in our next protocol. So that's really what we're aiming for, and better selection of journals and congresses, like what's the right target for our information. So so we're not there yet, but we're getting there.
It's part of the process.
It is.
Incredible. And then another question that we had was, how does the system support collaboration and exchange of information on publications among stakeholders? So things like, are there any, comment, feedback, features on publication drafts?
Yes. So there is the transparency where they can see feedback amongst authors. And then there's Salesforce has the chatter feature where the internal colleagues and our agency partners can speak to one another through, like a Teams or IM or that kind of thing. So they do use that for correspondence. And so we definitely have much more transparency than we've had before, and we're allowing that.
Right. I think that's definitely, very key component. So I'm glad that that's, given a prioritization too. All right, awesome. We have another question. I know we're a minute, so I think we could just squeeze in one more in. So we have a question that says, beyond clinical trial data and publications, are your solutions able to track RWE and incorporate these new streams of data into product refinement? Yes,
so we do have, we don't have the real world evidence data sources coming in, but we are using it for our real world evidence publications. But that's something that we could consider for a future integration into our solution. I think it wouldn't be on the top of our list, but it's definitely, as more real world data is coming in, and we're using that in our publication, something for consideration, certainly.
Incredible. Well, I wanted to thank you both so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Definitely opened my eyes to the world of publication and really, just the effort that it takes to be able to, produce quality content that really does have an impact, both from a clinician perspective, but also, just as a consumer of health. So really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So be sure next week we have another session. So make sure to check that out from Digital Diagnostics. And I am also hosting another event next Tuesday. It's a menopause and mental health workshop. So if you're interested, the registration information is in the chat. We also have our digital health symposium on the 28th, and all of that registration information will be in the chat as well. So lots of events happening next week. I wanted to give one last shout out to our guests, Catherine and Gina. Thank you both so much for taking the time to chat with us today. Also wanted to thank our sponsors, Goodwin and Witham. And have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.